How's it going? It is a poor sports podcast. This is Casey McLean. It's been a little while since we've recorded one of these. Speaking of which, or not speaking of which, this is a different. Not it's not of which. I was looking for my daughter's monitor. We moved our youngest daughter out of our bedroom, which is a dream scenario for new not new parents, but parents of a relatively new child. The house I live in, the master bedroom is downstairs, so we're finally getting good sleep. Kind of. We did this in conjunction with the 2024 election, and so I have not been getting a ton of sleep. And I got to tell you, it's not because I'm so emotionally affected by the fact that that Donald Trump got elected. I'm not excited for a second Trump presidency. I wasn't excited for a Kamala presidency. I'm not excited for anything that's going on with the American government right now. So I don't know what it is. I just had so much anxiety leading up to it. It was either we get a second Trump presidency, or I thought we would get, if Kamala won, potentially like violent demonstrations. Maybe that's unfounded. I'm not here to tell you which people, are the bad guys. That's not I think they're all bad guys. And that's actually one thing that I will say is my stance on politics. This is not a politics podcast, but my stance, especially I'm someone who lives I don't live in a swing state. I live in a reliably blue state. This state I can't remember when, it was like the 70s or maybe the 50s was the last time that like the governor of Washington was a Republican. So it doesn't matter. My vote literally doesn't matter. And my thing is, if you live in a state like that, you owe it to yourself and people with your same values that do live in swing states, that do have to plug their nose and pick what they think is the lesser of two evils. You owe it to those people to vote your values. So that's where I'm at. Till I don't live in this state anymore. Oh shit, all right, we're going to pause real quick. God damn it, kid. Hold on. You might have heard that beeping. That was what I was wondering where it was. That is the baby monitor. We found it because my daughter cried for a brief moment, but she's back asleep. She's down for a nap right now. She's homesick today. So I'm going to try to get the volume down on this so it doesn't become a constant distraction, but it could become a distraction at different points. Anyways, vote your values. Vote your values 2028 or whatever, 2026, especially if you don't live in a swing state. I'm gonna continue to vote my values. I have friends who are Republicans. I have friends who are Democrats. I'm not offended by anyone's politics. I don't really even care to know people's politics most of the time. And I think we're kind of getting back to that point. I remember, so Tony Hinchcliffe, because everybody's been dying for me to weigh in on Tony Hinchcliffe speaking at the RNC. I'll tell you, my feelings on it are I don't care. And some of the greatest comedians in the world have held political opinions that I don't agree with. And even like there's actually a tradition of like Don Rickles, I think, did some stuff at the Reagan which isn't none of this is evidence that these guys are good or bad. These politicians are good or bad. But my point is, let's get back to a time when a person can just be whatever politics they want to be and we don't give a shit anymore. That's my stance. Unless they force you to. Obviously, there's people who really care to tell you their political views. This is not one of those podcasts. All I'm saying is vote your values in a place. If you live in a place where your vote doesn't matter, like where I live, vote your values. And so this time around, I'll tell you what my values were. My dad always, by the way, when I've tried to write a joke about this, I don't know if it'll ever work. My joke was my dad when I was growing up, would tell us that he would tell us, you don't have to share your vote, that's private. And that's the same reaction a white guy has when you ask his penis size. And the reason that they're scared to tell you is it's going to be a disappointment. You know the answer is small and Republican. I voted for nobody on the president and the governor. That's I was less animated about the governor, but I would like to see people who I agree with more. And I couldn't find anyone in a third party that I tried. I tried to find someone in a third party that I agreed with. God damn it, kid. Oh, we got some crying going on. All right, we're gonna turn those we're gonna ignore my daughter via do you hear the beeping? I assume you can hear the beeping because I have no noise canceling on. This is a thing you buy this device, this monitor, thinking, oh yeah, this will be good. I'll be able to monitor my child, and then you realize that you become Pavlov's dog, and your reaction, instead of salivating when you hear a can opener or whatever Pavlov's dog was, is you just get irrationally angry when you hear the beeping of a child coming out of a sleep that they should be in. It's also possible I'm one room over. She might hear me. She might hear me recording this podcast, but I wanted to talk about a couple Seattle topics. But before I do want to say Alex is officially not on the podcast anymore. We had to talk about it. We're still friends. He's still going to be a guest on the podcast. He just doesn't have bandwidth to devote to it, which I understand, by the way. We're, days late on this, and I have broken I talked about wanting to do it multiple times a week, and now it's been like 11 days, and it's possible that what you're seeing is me slowly drifting away from doing this podcast. I also have a plan on kind of a different angle in early 2025, but we'll burn that bridge when we get there. So Alex not going to be part of the podcast. So if that means you got to hit unsubscribe, I understand. Alex is a very talented guy and a friend of mine. And there's no bad blood. There was like it was pretty obvious to me that he wasn't going to keep doing it. Like I kept joking with him and with other people about it, and it's fine. He had a new kid. He's trying to be a good dad, and I can identify with that. I personally am willing to neglect my children for my art. Speaking of which, by the way, come see me, Kirkland Side Hustle Brewing on November 21st. It's coming up quickly. Ticket sales are looking light, I would say. I did it last year and it sold out. This year, it's been a little bit dicier. In fact, I probably should have spent today instead of... This is part of the problem with this podcast is every time I do this podcast, it's an hour I could spend on something that actually makes me some money, whether that's writing new stand-up, whether that's creating new ads, new reels, whatever. And so this is why it is finally, do I have a reason to quit a podcast if I do quit this podcast? That is like not just, oh, it's been failing and I'm going to turn to something else that will probably also fail. I actually have profitable things to devote my time to. We'll see if I get there. We'll see if I do it. I love talking about sports. I especially love when we've done these live. I love the interaction. That makes it a lot easier to slog through a podcast. But all that being said, I wanted to talk about two different things. One of them is because the Seahawks, obviously they're getting Abe Lucas back, which is exciting because no Seahawks team in my memory has needed offensive line help more than this 2025 edition of the Seahawks. And Abe Lucas is a starter quality player that's like available. He was already on your payroll. He was already counting against the cap. It's like making a midseason trade, except for you don't have to take on salary. And but what I really wanted to talk about is there's this like growing valley, ravine, chasm between Seattle Seahawks fans who would like to see the team trade DK Metcalf and those who think it's completely insane to be considering a trade for DK Metcalf. And I want to talk about the implications of that. I also want to lay out an abridged offseason, the dream plan for the Seattle Mariners offseason, my dream, my like what I would be neutral on, what I would call like the whatever outcome. Like, does it make the team slightly better? Sure. Does it excite me? Does it move my nether region into a position that it was not in previously? Probably not. But I just want to get it on record. I want to get it on wax because when they don't do any of it, or when they do it and it fucks up and blows up in their face, I would like to at least be on record being wrong about what they should have done in the offseason. I've been wrong on Mariners stuff before. I was frankly irate when they re-signed Nelson Cruz. I was very angry when they traded away Michael Saunders for JP Happ, for example, and I think that trade turned out to be pretty good. I thought that Saunders was probably going to be about as good as Nelson Cruz was, which he certainly was not. Some of that would have been some defensive value, but Yeah, I've been wrong on stuff before, but I want to at least put it on record so you can come back and talk to me about why I was wrong. But first, I want to talk about this DK Metcalf situation because I'm not like a full on team trade DK guy, but I was listening to a friend of the podcast, Dan Viens, did a like collaboration live stream with these two channels. One is the Hawk Zone Rundown, which is I'm trying to remember the Bryce Coot. I think it's Coot or Cootie. Coute. I think it's Coot. He's these guys I believe are both Canadian, which I'm not saying that to discredit them, although I'm not against using xenophobia against Canadians. In fact, I hopefully soon have a stand-up clip coming from a crowdwork show where I talk to some Canadians. So not only those guys and his co-host is fuck. This would be a lot more professional if I could remember both their names. Bryce and we're gonna pull it up. I'm not trying to be like a Hollywood guy that can't remember. I should remember their names. It's a pretty good podcast. They get great guests, by the way. It's what are their names? What are their names? I don't want to pull it up and listen to it, but I just want to know their names. Tell me your names. Oh my God. How far into this do I have to get before Bryce? Oh, Ryan? Why is it? It's Ryan? There's no way I would have thought it was Ryan. What they had they used to do it with two, Armac. That's what B Rice and Armac. I don't know what his last name is, but they were very Malibu's Most Wanted rapper names is my memory. And then Jackson Bevins from Cigar Thoughts, and the topic of DK Metcalf came up on this live stream, and universally across these four guys, it was so stupid, and basically it was it actually really felt to me, the election has kind of brought up these feelings, these kind of groupthink feelings where it's I'm not really going to present evidence other than DK Metcalf is good. And if you disagree with me, you're not the kind of fan I want to deal with. That was kind of the sentiment that I got from it. And I don't deal with any of these guys except for I'll message Dan. Dan's been on the podcast. I'd love to have him on again. Bryce follows me. I don't think Armac follows me, and Jackson Bevins I do not think follows me on social media. Certainly no interaction if any of them do. And yeah, what I would say is I do think there's nuance to the situation, and I think there can be nuance that does not mean that DK Metcalf is not good and is not valuable and doesn't do, by the way, many little things that go underappreciated, right? We saw earlier in the year there was a Kenneth Walker run. I think it might have been I think it was a Kenneth Walker run. It could have been a Geno Smith run, but it was against Atlanta. Now I'm having a hard time remembering what the exact play was, but DK Metcalf, he was blocking with one hand, and basically what I think was happening there, I don't think he's so strong that he was blocking with one hand, but he had been overmatching his defender in the blocking game so much that the defender was I give up. I will not fight you on this block. And which is by the way, a really bad look when the camera's going to pan to you on a touchdown run. But so here's my problem with paying DK Metcalf big money. First off, it's not easy to find elite receivers, but it is easier to find good receivers than it has been. And in fact, that's been true for a long time. The Seahawks, one of the, during the Pete Carroll era, Tyler Lockett was a 3rd round pick. Doug Baldwin was I think an undrafted free agent. The Seahawks had Darrell Jackson was a guy that contributed for a long time. And of course, you're not pulling these guys out every year, but Jake Bobo was okay. The Seahawks have not devoted a ton of mid-round resources to these guys outside of course, D. Eskridge, who had a disappointing run in Seattle. But The Jackson Smith and Jigba had a great game. That does not influence my. He had a great game against. Oh my God, my. Why is it escaping me? It wasn't the Bills, right? It was the Rams. He had a great game against the Rams. My God, I am gonna start a. Well, we'll talk about it when the time comes. I'm starting a comedy podcast also, so you have that to look forward to. But we'll promote it on here when the time comes. Here's the reason. I'm gonna name you the 12 most. What is it? No, the 13 most. I think 13 highest annual average value contracts as a percentage of the salary cap. So it's not just money, because obviously the money has gone up, but it is as a function of, as a percentage of the NFL salary cap, the highest contracts. And this is from, I should have sourced the data better. I put this together a couple days ago. And you'll see a couple of these folks are going to show up on here twice. Tyreek Hill is one, the contract he signed in 2022. The second largest annual average value as a percentage of the salary cap is Jerry Rice, a deal he signed in 1996. Justin Jefferson in 2024, DeAndre Hopkins in 2020, Randy Moss in 2001 with the Vikings. By the way, Hopkins was with the Cardinals. Larry Fitzgerald with the Cardinals in 2011. Calvin Johnson with the Lions 2012. Devontae Adams, I believe it was a deal so the information I have, I think he played he signed the deal in, oh yeah, that's right. Signed the deal in Vegas. Obviously the deal carries over to the Jets where he's playing now. CeeDee Lamb, the deal he signed in 2024. Cooper Kupp, the deal he signed in 2022. A.J. Brown, the deal he signed in 24. And then A.J. Brown is the next guy on the deal he signed in 2022. And then Marvin Harrison. And it takes till you get to Marvin Harrison. 13 contracts down the list before you find someone who won a Super Bowl on that contract. That includes Jerry Rice, by the way. That includes 1996, the contract that Jerry Rice signed in 1996, Jerry Rice. It takes till you get, by the way, till that first A.J. Brown contract for someone who even appeared in a Super Bowl. Because, and by the way, he was not, the higher salary had not kicked in. He was making, what was the AAV was like, what was it, $25 million on that contract? But he actually was making, I think that year his cap number was like, the year the Eagles went to the Super Bowl with A.J. Brown on that contract, I believe his cap number was like $3 million or something like that. So it must have been like the following years is when it kicked in. My point is, it is intensely difficult to make it to a Super Bowl when your resources are allocated in that way. And a thing that was said on that podcast that animated me to talk about this at all, because we're halfway through an NFL season. We're not close to a time when the Seahawks can trade DK Metcalf, when they really even need to think about trading DK Metcalf. And what animated me was so Jackson Bevins, I think, was the person talking, but they were talking about how if watching football, if the only way there's this thing where it's like not, and it's not to shit on these guys in particular. I don't know. I don't consume any of their work on a regular basis except for Dan Viens, who I think an amazing job on his podcast, by the way. The Seahawks Forever podcast. It's incredibly well produced, incredibly well thought out. So much better, so much more thought goes into that podcast than what you're consuming right now. But they said, one of them said, if the only way you can enjoy a season is if the Seahawks win the Super Bowl, that's a sad way to consume football. And that's not, I mean, that's like obvious. That's a straw man. That is a classic straw man. We are at the end of political season. That is a classic straw man, because that's not the only way that people can enjoy a football season. But I do think if you are a fan and if you like the Seahawks, you want them to be pursuing a championship. You want the what's at the end of the rainbow or the light at the end of the tunnel to be a Super Bowl, not like contending for an NFC championship appearance. You want the goal to be to win the Super Bowl. And especially, by the way, as Seahawks fans, we've experienced that now. We've experienced the Seahawks going to 2 Super Bowls in a row, winning a Super Bowl. We experienced going to a Super Bowl in 2005. We have reason to feel entitled to be there again. Now, I think if you're a Mariners fan, obviously none of that stuff's in reach. And to a degree, it's like the fan base almost owes it to themselves to hold the Mariners' feet to the flames. Stop going to games. Stop supporting a team that is not attempting to win a championship. If that's what you want to experience eventually, it doesn't mean these like absolutes and these false scenarios where like the only way you could possibly have enjoyed a season is if the team wins a championship. That's bullshit. That doesn't have to live completely exclusive from the idea that you want the team to be pursuing a championship aggressively. That's what I want the Seahawks to be doing. I want the Seahawks to be pursuing a championship aggressively. And it is incredibly difficult, as we can see from all these guys, and you can keep going further down the list. Marvin Harrison won a Super Bowl. Julio Jones did not. Brandon Ayuk signed the deal this year, has not. Tyreek Hill is next on the list, signed the deal this year with the Dolphins. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown. 1998, Jerry Rice signs another extension. Still does not appear in another Super Bowl with the 49ers on that contract. I think it does not appear in another Super Bowl is the actual reality of his career, although I'm like questioning if maybe he in like Denver or something. Deebo Samuel, 2022, I think appears in a Super Bowl, obviously does not win a Super Bowl. Larry Fitzgerald, 2004, he signed a contract. I think that one, I think they were in the 2006 season, the Super Bowl that occurred in 2007, so that's a Super Bowl appearance. Stephon Diggs signs a deal in 2022 that carries over to Houston from Buffalo. Neither one has been to a Super Bowl with him on the roster. DK Metcalf, by the way, the deal he's on right now ranks 22nd on this list. Jalen Waddle, the deal he signed in 2024. I mean, these are all adjusted for percent. This is all ranked by percentage of salary cap. So it's a lot of these guys these are newer contracts because these players keep pushing the envelope every year. It does not mean because you sign a player to the highest annual average value contract that is the best wide receiver in football. He's just the guy that most recently signed an extension that you can't easily replace in free agency. DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, these guys are on the list in this same spot. You get further down, it's like the 2017 Steelers. You're so far down this list. It's so far down. Percy Harvin, the deal he signed with Seattle. And obviously that situation blew up in their face. Michael Thomas signs a big deal 2019. A lot of these deals are disastrous. And DK Metcalf is 27 years old right now. You can't take for granted the idea that DK Metcalf he's probably not going to play. And it's nothing about DK Metcalf in particular. It's about the physical demands of being an NFL player, a receiver in the NFL. What is he going to have? 3 more very good years? That's probably the median outcome. Sure, maybe he'll have 6. But is that going to be, is he going to be in a Seahawks uniform with if you have any doubt that quarterback could be a problem, by the way, that's enough reason to me to not go, especially when in the NFL, because there's the classic argument that really stupid sports fans make where they go, it's not my money. But the NFL, there is a salary cap, so it matters, and it's a hard cap. You can't exceed the salary cap. I think there's I would say 95% you can't exceed the salary cap, and then there's a little tiny bit of gray area where they'll grant you a little grace if you weren't intending to exceed the salary cap, and escalators brought you up a very small percentage above the salary cap. Remember a couple years ago when the Seahawks were playing with 52 players, there were not signing guys until the next week because they couldn't go over the cap, and the more guys were active. I mean, they were like really, really playing it tight to the salary cap. So should the Seahawks trade DK Metcalf? I mean, I don't think that you trade him for nothing. I don't think you trade him for the sake of trading him. Nobody's arguing that. You're probably also not going to get an A.J. Brown-like return. The Titans got... Oh, that's the other thing, too, that people say. They're like, well, the Titans traded A.J. Brown, and how did that work out for them? Well, the good news is, while they suck, they're not paying a receiver $35 million a year, $32 million a year. You think the Titans, the difference between the Titans being who they are now and a very good team in the NFL is one A.J. Brown? No, that's a dog shit team. And the Seahawks are standing on the precipice of also being a dog shit team, by the way. So yeah, my stance on that is like, I mean, if you can get a first round pick, I think you take it. That's period. Maybe it gets a little bit dicier if you can't get a first round pick, but yeah, if you can get a first round pick and change, I mean, do not hesitate to make that deal, in my opinion. All right, let's talk about the Mariners offseason. I want to be on record with this because there's going to be a lot of talk about... So right now, the Mariners payroll, I believe, sits the expected payroll with the escalations of people's salaries through arbitration and all that stuff is around $145 million. So my dream scenario, I'm going to dream medium, I would say, is that the Mariners... that they increase their payroll to roughly $200 million. It's probably not going to happen. That's why it's a dream. I don't think they're going to $300 million. I think that's an unrealistic expectation. If you believe that's what they should do, you're going to be disappointed. What is it? If that's what it's like the Seahawks thing, I'm just doing the same thing hypocritically. What I'm saying is, like, within the confines of reality, here's my dream offseason, and I know it's not going to happen. I know huge chunks of it aren't going to happen. I think any move in this dream scenario as a standalone move makes a lot of sense to me, with the exception of one, and we could talk about why. So my dream Mariners offseason, they sign Juan Soto. They're not going to sign Juan Soto. Don't worry. I'm not delusional. I don't think they're going to sign Juan Soto. Juan Soto is in his mid-20s. He's a left-handed bat. He's a quality athlete. He's a guy who I think could hit in T-Mobile Park and who doesn't have age working against him. He's also a guy, by the way, the reason I think it falls into, like, the only reason it's realistic is that I think Juan Soto is a pure capitalist. I think he is out to get the absolute most money that he can, and if it matters to Juan Soto, Washington State does not have a state income tax. He does not seem to care about winning. He doesn't necessarily care about being the closest possible to his family, though I'm sure these things, they've probably played some role. I remember when the Mariners signed Robinson Cano. It was the first time I've ever heard, I've never understood why this isn't the case. It was the first time I ever heard the fact that Washington State does not have a state income tax brought up as a positive about signing with the Mariners or any Washington State-based team. So Juan Soto is number one. I know that gives you 4 outfielders. Great. Let Victor Robles be a 4th outfielder. You signed him to 4th outfielder money. He's a very good defensive outfielder. I have no idea if the hitting is going to carry over. I certainly don't have enough confidence that the hitting is going to carry over that I'm willing to just bet on it. Just not make additions. Also, you need a DH. So if Randy Arozarena becomes a part-time DH along with playing an outfield spot, if you give Julio days off, if you give Juan Soto days off, you should probably never be DHing Victor Robles, but I'm not worried about having 4 quality outfielders. I guess one worry is that you're going to have Mitch Haniger on the roster. The fact that obviously he was going to sign his player option. He had a terrible season last year. He probably could not get a guaranteed contract if he went into free agency in this offseason. I think that it's the end of the road for Mitch Haniger. And so, yeah, he's there. I don't think you change your plans at all with the idea that Mitch Haniger is going to be a contributing member of this team. I think you probably I would like to see the Mariners go into spring training open-minded about the idea of cutting Haniger and eating his salary, because last year he made a negative contribution to the team. I like Mitch Haniger, by the way, but it's over. Probably. And certainly he should not be playing an outfield spot. My next addition is going to be the most controversial, and we will offset it a little bit, is almost no free agents want to sign in Seattle. But Blake Snell has shown active interest in wanting to sign in Seattle. He did last year anyway. He's a Seattle guy. He's a very good pitcher, a very, very, very good pitcher. If you could sign him to a 3 or 4 year deal, $30 million, $35 million, $40 million annual average, it's expensive. I understand that. Again, this is a dream off season. We're going to offset the salary a little bit. We're going to end up resting right around $200 million, I think, when this is all said and done. I'm not going to add it all up. I'm not going to discredit myself by adding it all up. Sign Roki Sasaki, who is the top prospect coming out of Japan, a pitcher who has historically thrown in the low hundreds, who has a split finger fastball that's also very effective, has a slider that is less effective. There will be a lot of excitement around Roki Sasaki. I will temper it slightly by saying I've watched some stuff that suggests his velocity was significantly down last year, which might point to an injury. The good news is, let's say he's injured. Let's say he's a year one Tommy John surgery guy. He's the most you can pay him. The most you're allowed to pay him is the international pool money. So fairly minimal investment. The dream is Roki Sasaki wants to come to Seattle. I don't even think we need to spend a lot of time on that. That's an if, or the Mariners can't offer him anything other than what you think Ichiro's legacy is worth. The other teams, unfortunately, that are rumored to be interested in Sasaki are the usual suspects. The Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, maybe the Angels, and the Padres. Teams, the Mariners have lost, by the way. They had an edge at one point where it was assumed every Japanese player was going to give Seattle a shot. I don't know if I mean, when was I guess the dude, what was his name? That's the Matsui that signed with the Mets. So Hideki and Kaz Matsui came, I think, the same year. And then Shohei Ohtani was, I think, the first one that they pursued really hard that didn't sign here. I could be wrong on that, but it used to be the presumption was if the Mariners wanted a guy, a Japanese-born player, he would be in Seattle, and that's not the case anymore. In fact, it's the Dodgers. The Dodgers, frankly, are the team that you assume those guys are going to go to. By the way, this is some of this is a reaction to the Major League Baseball trade rumors top 50 with predictions, especially the Nightmare. When we get to the Nightmare scenario, that's what it's related to. I would then trade Luis Castillo for a quality bat that plays in the infield. Who that is, I'm not sure. There's two things that are out of the Mariners' control. Who is interested in acquiring Luis Castillo, and if Luis Castillo is willing to waive his no trade clause. Because the way that I've heard it described two different ways. I've heard Luis Castillo's trade clause described as one that expires January 1st, 2025. And I've heard it described as expiring after the 2025 season. I've never heard of a no trade clause expiring on January 1st, so I'm skeptical that that's the case. If that's the case, wait till then, trade him to whoever is interested. In the meantime, if we operate under the idea that he gets to exercise a full no trade clause through the 2025 season, it means he's going to want to pick a spot, and it means that he's probably going to want something in return if just simply winning isn't enough. So I'm ambivalent to who that is. I want a comparable quality bat, ideally in the infield, from whoever they trade him to. We can dig into that later as the offseason goes on. And then again, in this dream scenario, we are adding a presumptive fifth asset in the offseason, which I do not think, if any of these was going to happen, I would say the Roki Sasaki deal and this next guy I'm going to talk about, who I'm going to say Hee-Sung Kim, I think is how you pronounce his name. We're going to find out more, especially if the Mariners sign him. We'll get a pronunciation guide. I won't be as ignorant, Anglo-tongued by then. But Hee-Sung Kim, left-handed infielder in his mid-20s, low strikeout rate in Korea, decent walk rate, hit for power there. It's very difficult to see or to quantify what power is going to look like translating from a foreign league into the major leagues. But a guy who seems to have bat-to-ball skills, who bats left-handed, and does not – I don't know what his defense is like. I'm assuming he could play second or third base. The Mariners need someone – they need people at third base, second base, arguably third base, second base, depending on how you feel about Josh Rojas. I think the Rojas you got in the second half of the season, which was more like the Josh Rojas the rest of his career, is the guy you should expect to get for the rest of his career. That guy's a useful player. I don't know if he's a starter on a good team, frankly. That's like a fifth infielder to me. That's like a utility infielder, a guy who could probably play a little bit of outfield, who could play theoretically all four infield positions. Has Josh Rojas ever played in the outfield? I'm not fighting for Josh Rojas to not be on this team. I want to make that clear. But I'm not like, he does not have a spot locked up in my mind. Josh Rojas has played 100 games in the outfield in his career. 30 plus in left field in 2019, and then like 55 in 2021. So Josh Rojas is a guy that I think could be very useful for the Mariners, but a guy that I'm not devoting a spot to. And that rounds out my dream scenario. That probably gets the Mariners closer to like $225 million payroll, even with the Castillo offset, assuming you get someone who is not making pre-arbitration league minimum, whatever. And I guess also presuming that you don't have to pay a large portion of Luis Castillo's salary. So yeah, in that case, you're getting like a big league bat in that trade. Here's my neutral. And by neutral, I was trying to think of like a better analogy, because a dream, you're asleep, a nightmare, you're asleep. I wanted to call it like conscious, aware, awake. I didn't think any of those things came off as smoothly as dream, neutral, nightmare. My neutral acquisitions that I would like the Mariners to make in the offseason are Alex Bregman. I'm not high, I'm not low on Alex Bregman. I worry about Alex Bregman. He's entering his early 30s. He's right-handed. I'm sure he's probably hit decently. In fact, we could probably find this pretty easily. Alex Bregman splits. Fangraphs. I'm sure he has hit decently in T-Mobile Park. I don't have a lot of doubt about that. Okay, we're going to go to his splits tool. Let's see what we can do about this. Can we get a stadium? Let's see. Let's go to splits. We'll go to parks. We'll go to T-Mobile Park. Do they not have T-Mobile Park in here? Oh, they have it like way earlier. That's funny. Okay, parks. T-Mobile Park. What have you done, Alex Bregman? Let's check your advanced stats. He has batted. Ooh, give me a career. I don't want to split these. I don't want to split these seasons. Group by career. There we go. 228 plate appearances. Ooh, this is not as good. 228 plate appearances, 259 average, 325 on base, 400 slugging, good for a 101 WRC plus. Is this because of the bad batter's eye? I will say he has struck out only 13.6% of his plate appearances and walked 8.3% of his plate appearances. But let's quickly see. His BABIP was 281. We're on the fly doing math nobody cares about, but let's take a look at just straight up Alex Bregman's classic career stats. Alex Bregman, at least his BABIP. Alex Bregman. 281 is a low BABIP, and he's been a career 280 BABIP guy. So this is not BABIP bad luck that has made Alex Bregman not succeed at Safeco Field. This is just simply he has not to this point hit at Safeco Field. Does that worry you? 201 plate appearances is a third of a season. Does that worry you? That's part of the reason why I'm neutral. I suspect that the market for him is going to be a little more limited. Because he's a little bit older, plays a non-premium position, although he was a college shortstop. He's talked about being willing to move to second base. I think the bat becomes a lot easier to play at second base if he's actually a good second baseman, which I suspect he would be. To continue my neutral Mariners offseason scenario, Justin Turner, who just seems like an inevitability, a guy who's going to probably be a DH and first baseman, fine. I'm not excited. I don't hate it. I presume it's not going to be a ton of money, but I'm not going to be passionate either way about Justin Turner. And then there's one guy that I think is interesting that could solve a couple problems for these Mariners. And remember, in this neutral scenario, the Mariners have not added an outfielder, and that is Jurickson Profar, who played last year and played well in San Diego in a pitcher's ballpark, who's been around for a while. He's in his early 30s. He's always walked a decent amount. He's always hit for a little bit of power. He's always been relatively athletic. He had some injury issues, but he's a guy. So last year he 280 batting average, 380 on base, 459 slugging, 24 home runs, 29 doubles, 10 stolen bases. What positions did you play last year? Because he came up, he was like an uber prospect in the Texas system. And what did he play last year? In 2024, where did you play? Probably just outfield is my guess. 24, he plays 148 games in left field. But, played... This is like this fielding thing that I'm looking at is tough to read at this speed. I guess he played like one game at second base, 5 games at first base, another game in right field in 2023, played 2 games at first base in 2024. So I suppose that Profar's his days as an infielder maybe past him. Like he played 68 games at shortstop in 2018, 124 games in Oakland at second base, 2019, 2020. He plays, obviously you're like COVID shortened season, but he's in San Diego, plays most of his time in left field, plays some second base, spends a little bit of time. Yeah, so he's primarily an outfielder, a guy who you could potentially have as a backup infielder, backup outfielder, the guy who I would feel more confident going into 2025 with a spot in the lineup every day as an outfielder than Victor Robles, and a guy who maybe could provide you some utility at other spots, who gives you a little bit of roster flexibility, and maybe more importantly also is a switch hitter. I don't know what his splits are like, but as a guy who is not just like a right-handed hitter who doesn't hit very well. And then I'm going to talk about, these are my nightmare guys. This would be a nightmare offseason to me where the Mariners increase their payroll with 2 guys who probably are going to be in the Mitch Garver, Mitch Haniger. You want to cut them by the middle of the season. So the number one guy is Paul Goldschmidt. He's 37 years old. his best years came in Arizona. Great hitter's ballpark. Never was a guy who was putting up 50 home runs a year. What is Paul Goldschmidt's? Paul Goldschmidt. But a guy who limited strikeouts, who walked a ton at points in his career. Career high is 36 home runs. And he's been in St. Louis since 2019. He's actually, I will say, been a little bit better there than I thought leading up to now. So 2023, 122 WRC plus, 25 home runs, 268, 363, 447. In the prior year, a 175 WRC plus, 35 home runs, 317, 404, 578. You get 317, 404, 578 in Safeco Field or in T-Mobile Park, whatever we're going to call it. I hate that the name changed because it's so ingrained in me. It's so difficult to make that change for me. But that's like, you're in like Nelson Cruz territory if you could do that at T-Mobile Park. The years before that in St. Louis, he was also very good. And then the years in Arizona, he's aided by a very hitter-friendly ballpark, but had some great years. In fact, that 2022 in St. Louis, I might have slept on Paul Goldschmidt a little bit. That might have been the best year of his career. But last year, walk rate plummets, strikeout rate peaks. He's still a 100 WRC plus guy, but he's 37 years old, going into his it'll be his age 37 season. Also, but a guy who I think like the risk is high. He could be done. He could be done with baseball. This could be it. And then my second nightmare guy that the Mariners have been tied to by, I'm going to tell you all the guys that the Mariners have been tied to on this, as meaning one of the four. So I'm going to share this real quick, actually, so I meant to share it earlier. We'll share it now. This is the MLB Trade Rumors top 50 with predictions. So this, like, for example, you can see if you're watching, Juan Soto, 13 years, $600 million. It's a lot of money. I don't think the Mariners are going to sign him to that deal, by the way. I would be fine with that risk, though. He's going into his age 26 season, but that to get to my point, you can see that the none of the MLB Trade Rumors experts have predicted that that Soto would sign with the Mariners. And then we'll look at the guys that they have predicted. We're getting a little ways down this list, by the way. There were people who had, wasn't there one guy that had Bregman? Yeah, there was one dude that had Alex Bregman going to the Mariners. So we'll get further down this list, because the next place you see one of these four guys predicting, and it's two of the guys predicting that Gleyber Torres would sign with the Mariners. And to me, Gleyber Torres represents an absolute nightmare scenario. He's young. He comes with an extremely good prospect pedigree, and he played for the Yankees. He played in a hitter's park. He's not been that great since, I think, his second year. I want to say he hit like 38 home. Yeah, it says on the screen here 38 home runs. He had a 104 WRC plus last year. I'm gonna pull up the Mariners real quick, because I think that the Mariners probably have a comparable hitter. And the reason I bring this up is because, to me, and I've harped on this many times, the biggest impact on the Mariners offense and defense is not really, like last year, was not having elite or bad talent, but it was the ballpark. And so let's find a guy. Oh yeah, this was actually Dylan Moore had a comparable. I want to say that Gleyber Torres had a 104 WRC plus. Was it a 104? Gleyber Torres had a 104 WRC plus. So 665 plate appearances. He performed by weighted runs created plus, which is a park adjusted stat at the same level as Dylan Moore. So, do you need to acquire another Dylan Moore, a guy that can, I think, only play second base? By the way, Torres, not a shortstop. Do you need that? I would say no. Torres is worth 1.7 wins above replacement. Plays, I think exclusively second base now. Is that right? I think that's right. Right? Did he play shortstop at all this year? No shortstop this year. Last 2 seasons and most of 2022 exclusively second base. This is not a shortstop anymore, and he's not a good second baseman defensively. He's an average defensive second baseman, and a guy who seems like he would come to Seattle and just absolutely crater because he would lose, I suspect, huge chunks of the power and doesn't have a low enough strikeout rate or a high enough walk rate to carry through his stats. He's going to be 28 years old next year. That's young for free agency. Still, stay away. Stay away, Mariners, because I think that would become the marquee signing of the offseason, and this dude will, in my prediction, if he signs with Seattle, will come here and be a bust. Who else did they? Well, real quickly while we're here, the Mariners were also rumored to be in on Kim, which we talked about earlier. Again, 2 people predicting, and it's the 2 people that predicted Kim did not predict Torres. So, like, if I had to choose between signing Hee-Sung Kim to a shorter deal, but taking the risk on him versus Gleyber Torres, like, to me, Gleyber Torres seems very obviously like a guy who's going to struggle in Seattle. And Kim, there's at least some upside, at least a guy that bats left-handed, a guy that seems to have a controlled strikeout rate. We'll see what it's like when he faces major league pitching. Obviously, that could change it all, but yeah. And by the way, it's not like there are Korean-born players who have come to America and had a lot of success. I believe he's, for legal reasons, no longer in baseball, but Jung Ho Kong a couple years ago was like a very good Pirates. He played third base and second base, maybe a little bit of shortstop is my recollection, was like a very good hitter. Let's see if anyone else has been. Yeah, the Mariners are not tied to anyone else on here. So to me, the dream off season is stop fighting Blake Snell. Stop pretending like this guy who badly wants to sign with Seattle or who at least has expressed some interest. Stop pretending like he can't bring value to your team just because you have starters. You need every team in baseball needs more than 5 starters to win a World Series. Do you care about winning a World Series? Do you care about winning a championship? To me, that matters. To me, I would like to see the Mariners pointing their team in that direction and not just by getting incrementally better by making these like little tiny moves. I'm fine, by the way, if they trade away. I don't care who the pitcher they trade away is. I'm fine with them trading away pitching. I would love to see them go out. If it was Luis Castillo and Blake Snell and they signed Sasaki and Snell and add maybe $20 million in payroll above what Castillo was making, but get 2 starters of high quality and whatever they get for Luis Castillo, those moves alone would be huge to me. Whatever you do with Brian Wu does not seem like a guy who's going to play a full season, by the way. Like, to go into a season going, if the rotation is as good as it was last year, it probably won't be. If they're as healthy as they were last year, they probably won't be. The Mariners have a chance to sneak into the playoffs. They probably won't be in the playoffs. Okay. Come see me do stand-up. Like I said, it was like a rough transition, but I'm like, I got to go get this kid. She's crying. November 21st, Side Hustle Brewing. Let's just pull up the old calendar. I'm actually tomorrow, if you're listening to this, the day it comes out, or Friday, November 15th, I'm at Chalet Theater in Enumclaw. November 19th, I am at the finale of the Comedy Voice competition at Tacoma Comedy Club. Somebody will be the 2024 Tacoma Comedy Club's Comedy Voice competition champion. The 20th, I'll be in Gig Harbor at the Beer Vault. Going to be a cool gig. I have not been there before. Excited to be there. And then Kirkland on the 21st, Bickerson's Brew House. I don't think I'm going to be at the show, but we have a great lineup. Adam Tiller headlining, friend of the podcast. We actually we did a road gig together and we got in an argument. And it was the same weekend. It was the last time I saw my Uncle Bob, who was, he'd been in the hospital for like 30 days with sepsis after getting an infection. And I tried to record a podcast with Adam Tiller after that and us having an argument the previous night. And it ended up just like, it was not good. I was just like too fucked up emotionally, but he's a good friend of mine. And he's, by the way, the guy that produces that Gig Harbor show. So he's bringing comedy all over the Pacific Northwest, and he's going to be headlining Bickerson's Brew House. Great comic. Go check that out. And then on the 27th of November, my last show before December, I will be at hosting the Make Me Famous shows at Tacoma Comedy Club. It's a live taping show with very good comedians. Come check that out. A bunch of comedians for your money. Otherwise, thank you for listening. I'm glad you listened. We'll see what this podcast turns into. I'm not mad at Alex. He's not mad at me. We're still friends. I'll never talk to him again. I hate him completely. Thank you all. Casey McLean Comedy everywhere, but on Twitter, where I am the Casey McLean. Thank you for listening. Bye. Oh, wait. And leave a voicemail at 530-3-SPORTS. Once we compile enough, as I've said many times, we will answer your email or your, not emails, voicemails.